Hello, everybody, and welcome or welcome back to the second shelf and to the first book haul of 2022. And we keep up with tradition, at least for now. This is the book haul blouse. So, yes, if you saw that and thought this is going to be a book haul, you were right. I mean, this is a kind of a long sleeve blouse, so it might very well be that when it's getting warmer, there's no indication so far. Like I said in my last video, it's gray and cold and wet. But if at some point we will have spring or summer, it might be that we will have a new book haul blouse. But for now, we'll stick with this. Anyway, the books. There are 11 books, actually 10. But I will show you 11 and I will explain why all the way at the end. So that is the sort of teaser for all you people who just want to watch the first 5 minutes and then go away, have your coffee and enjoy your Wednesday. But anyway, so I start with the first one that I already mentioned in my recent reads on Sunday because I'm already reading it. And that is a non-fiction essay collection, The Right to Sex by Amia Srinivasan. Published last year, and it is about sex, not in terms of gender, but really about having sex and the various implication that has from a feminist point of view, because the author is a feminist. She is a scholar, she's a professor in Oxford, and she explores all the various and sometimes difficult aspects of sexual relations, and with a focus on heterosexual relations, I should add. I'm reading this, as I told you in my Sunday video, together with Kathleen, but I also bought it, so that's why it's in the book haul. The next book is for my Author Spotlight project. If you follow my channel, you know that already, that I focus on one author each year, an author that is manageable in terms of the output of her work. And for 2022, I picked Susan Sontag. I read The Benefactor, or I'm still reading The Benefactor in January, and now I'm waving the new book in your face. This is hilarious. And the second book is Nonfiction Against Interpretation and Other Essays, published in 1966. So this is her first big essay. The Against Interpretation was one of her first really successful and now famous essays. Now looking for words. So this will be my February read for my Author Spotlight. Then another project that I'm trying to pay attention to this year is rereads. We all know, especially people like me getting older, the time you have to read is going to get shorter and shorter. And that, at least on me, had the effect that I really reread less than I ever did the last 5 years, I would say. I was so, all these books that I still want to read, and the time is getting, the amount of years that I have. And at some point I thought, this is really stupid. I will never be able to read all the books that I would want to read, no matter how much time I have left. I'm not Steve Donahue being able to read 3 books in a day. So I might as well reread books that I really loved, because it was such a pleasure. When I was younger, I reread much more than I read new books, also because I didn't have the money to buy books all the time. And it was a real pleasure to me to revisit books, and I want to do that again. And for February, I picked, what I want to do is just look at my bookcase and pick one for each month as a minimum. And of course, February is also Black History Month. And I had the book as a Kindle, but this is a new version and I really liked it. And so I bought myself a hard copy, Octavia E. Butler's book, Dawn, which is the first in her Xenogenesis series, her sci-fi series. It says here, Lilith's Brood. That is another title for the series. I don't know why they changed it. But I really liked this new cover. It came out last year, and the original was published, let me check, in 1987. And like I said, it's a sci-fi book about the Earth being almost uninhabitable, and a couple of people are saved by a foreign species, and then plot ensues from there. And I loved it. Especially loved the first book. So I thought this is a good reread pick for February, also because it's Black History Month. And the next book I know almost nothing about, and that is a euphemism. But I bought it because I'm watching and listening to, I should say, the Book Cougars, Chris and Emily. If you're not familiar with them, I will leave their Goodreads group down below, a link to the Goodreads group, and also the link to the YouTube channel, because they always put their podcast also available on YouTube. And they are fabulous. Like, they call themselves two middle-aged women looking for a good book or something. And it's such a pleasure to listen to them talking about what they read, what they plan to read, visiting bookstores. They have these really, really good radio voices, that you just sit back and listen and feel good. And their project, they always have group reads. And their project for this year, 2022, is Indigenous writers. And their first pick for the first quarter, I think the Zoom chat is in February, and the podcast where they discuss the book will be in March. But it's this book, Darcy Little Badger, A Snake Falls to Earth. And this is, I think, a middle grade book. And like I said, that's all I know, basically, mainly. But focusing on Indigenous authors, I thought was a really brilliant idea. And when they announced their first group read, I just ordered the book and I will read it. And if at all possible, I will also participate in the Zoom. It's very late for me. It's like after midnight. Because the two ladies are in the US, but I will still try, because I think they're fabulous, and I didn't pay enough attention to them and their podcast and their books last year, but this year will be different. The next book is also for a group read, if you will, and that is the BookNaturalists book club, run by Heidi from My Reading Life and Doris from All the Books. I will leave a link to Heidi's video in which she talks about all the books that we will read each month, because they pick one or two books about nature each month. And this year is exclusively female authors, which means for me that I can read all the books and talk with you about them. And the February pick is this, Undrowned, by Alexis Pauline Gums, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals. And it's just that. It's a slim little volume, and I think it was published, let me check that just to be sure. 2020. And the author is a poet, but she also watched the marine mammals, our cousins, if you will, and these are her reflections and what we might learn from them. I thought it sounded fascinating, and it's the BookNaturalists book club pick, so of course I bought it. Didn't that much like the cover, especially this, I think is, but there you go. Again, Black History Month, next month in February, but also you are probably familiar by now with one of my own projects, which is the 1001 books by and or about women. These lists that you have, the 1001 books that you have to read before you die, and they always feature 2/3 are male authors, and that irked me. And so I thought I'd make my own list. If you are interested, maybe to get inspiration, I will leave a link to my Goodreads shelf with the 1001 books below. And I also try to have, not only white female authors from Europe or the US, but to have a good diverse mix as much as possible. And one of the authors that I've always meant to read and never did is Bessie Head. She died quite young and some time ago, but she is one of the modern classic Black authors. And I picked just one of her novels, the one that was easily available to me, A Question of Power. And I will read that obviously also next month for Black History Month. And the book, I just checked, that's why the light changed. 1973 it was published. And just to have a look, the blurb says, your mother was insane. If you're not careful, you'll get insane just like your mother. Your mother was a white woman. And it's highly autobiographical because Bessie Head was born in a mental asylum, mental institution. Her mother was white, her father was Black, so it's also autobiographical. That was one of the reasons why I picked it, because I want to learn more about this author. If you have read Bessie Head and have other suggestions, please let me know. Then the next book is the pick of another book club that I follow and read along, and that is Mel's from Melanie Martin. I will leave a link to her channel down below, a Read Around the World book club. And this one, again, I have to check for the translator. It's 13 Month of Sunrise by Rania Mamoun, translated from the Arabic by Elizabeth Jacquet. This is a Sudanese author, but writing in Arabic. And again, it's a very short little book. I have 11 books, but some of them are so small that it looks like nothing. And this is the February book. You are familiar with the Read Around the World book club. Mel picks one book from a different country written by a woman. I mean, not the country, but the book is written by a woman every month. Most of them are translated like this one, and then we read it together and she discusses it on her blog. So this is the February pick. And then the last project that I will pay more attention to this year is the Invisible Cities reading project, run by a couple of people, but I will leave one channel, a link to one channel down below. That is Natalie from Curious Reader. And like I said, it's a group of people organizing this, and they pick 2 countries each month. They announce it like 2 months early, so you have a lot of time to look for books from authors from these 2 countries. So 2 countries each month. And then the idea is, to read books, but also maybe listen to music or watch films, movies, cook food. I'm not doing all that kind of stuff. I'm just focusing on reading for this year. And the 2 countries for February are Guyana and Uganda. And for Uganda, I picked Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi. A Girl is a Body of Water, which is in the UK or American edition. I think this is the UK edition, and the American edition, it's called First Woman. Don't ask me why, but it's the same book. And I picked this author, Makumbi, because I read Kintu by her, which is one of her famous books, prominent. And it did not work for me in the way that it worked for most people, because most reviews that I saw or read were just raving. It's not that I didn't like it, but it didn't work. And I thought, well, I want to, read at least one other book by this author. So when the Invisible Cities Project picked Uganda, I thought, this is the one that I will read. And so I bought it, and I just liked this better, by the way. Also the title, A Girl is a Body of Water, than First Woman. So I chose this one. And for Guyana, I followed the recommendation given by Natalie when she announced the two countries. And that is a collection of poetry, because poetry is also something that I'm certainly not reading a lot. So whenever I can, I'm sort of forced in a good way to pick poetry, I will do it. And that is Grace Nichols' The Fat Black Woman's Poems. And isn't that a fantastic title and just a fabulous cover? Also quite slim collection of poetry. So those are my two picks for Invisible Cities for February. And for my reread project, one of the books that I definitely want to reread this year is a memoir by Karen Armstrong, The Spiral Staircase. Karen Armstrong is a scholar, a theology scholar, I would call her. She wrote extensively about Islam, but also about gods in general and religion in general. I absolutely love her work. I think she's brilliant. And she was a nun for 10 years or something. And then she quit for various reasons. She wasn't happy. And this is her memoir about her making that choice and, finding a new life. I thought it was fantastic when I read it, I think 2 or 3 years ago. So this is on the stack to reread. So these are 10. Now we will come to book 11, and that's this one. Siri Hustvedt, Memoirs of the Future, published in 2020. And Siri Hustvedt is one of those writers. Sometimes her book works for me, sometimes it doesn't. I love The Blazing World. I love Summer Without Men. Lily Dahl didn't work for me. So it's a hit and miss. This is her latest novel. She now just published another collection of essays, and I watched a talk with her on YouTube about this book. And then I thought, it's weird that I didn't buy it in 2020. But never mind, I'll buy it. So I bought it. And of course, I already have it. Where is it? Somewhere? I'm not sure where it is. I probably already put it back in my shame. Oh no, here it is. When I already read a couple of snippets of the book, couldn't remember anything. And when I looked at the bookcase, yeah, of course I had it. And I read it. And I can't remember a thing. So this is not even going to count as a reread. But I definitely have to read this book again. I mean, does that happen to you? That you buy a book, not even old? I mean, if it had been a book from 20 years ago, okay. But this is a book from 2 years ago. I bought it, I read it, no memory. Another reason why I should reread more, to at least remember what I read. Anyway, this was the first book haul, my January book haul, the first one of 2022. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know whether there are books in the haul that interest you in particular, or whether you bought any books that you are really excited for. And I'm looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.